Things that I love about Finland. I love the food. I'm half Dutch, and so I was very familiar with potatoes. And I ate a lot of potatoes in Finland. I loved that. And I loved pickled beets. I love anything pickled. I love pickled herring. I also grew up with pickled herring, but it was good to be in a place that it felt like I was eating food I'd eat at home. So even though that wasn't something that a lot of Americans were used to, that was something I absolutely loved. Karjalan piirakka, that's good food. Yeah, I like those a lot. And I also love raw fish, so the salmon and the whitefish, that's all good stuff. Other things I loved the weather. My favorite season's winter, actually, so it was cold, but it was beautiful. Summer's beautiful too. I mean, there's lakes everywhere. It's like a spider web of lakes right across the entire country, and it was a summer paradise as well. Lots of just beautiful lakes and fishing and all of that. Forest is great. Berry picking, mushroom picking, all good stuff. Okay, this is something I didn't talk about regarding culture differences. Their level of modesty is like way below in what it is in the United States. So, and I think it stems a lot from sauna culture, which sauna is a wonderful thing in Finland. We love it. But generally when you go to sauna in Finland, you don't wear any clothes. And so, because it's normal to do that, people have, I guess, come to the conclusion that it's okay to just be naked in general in public. So not necessarily like on the streets or anything, but like people will open their doors and they'll just be naked. Or like they'll just be on their balconies or in their backyards just sunbathing naked, and you just say hello, and sometimes they're like, do you mind? But other times they're like, they'll just talk to you. Yeah, that was something to get used to, but then you come to the point where you're like, okay, this is how it is. Welcome to Finland. And it was fine after that. Just different from what I grew up around. We would go mushroom picking, and we had this book where it would show you, this is edible, this is not. And in the book they would purposefully put mushrooms that looked a lot alike near each other, so you could try and make sure that you're getting one that's not gonna kill you. There was one time I was looking at this book trying to identify this one, and it was so specific. It was like going down to looking at the gills at the bottom of the mushroom cap and seeing how they split apart in the patterns. And we're like, yeah, we're definitely not gonna pick this, because there's the one that says super delicious and the other one says will make you bleed out of your eyes. And so we decided not to pick that. But yeah, that was kind of a funny moment. The first thing that I think most people would say when they go to Finland is they are surprised how quiet people are there. In fact, when I moved back to the United States, I thought everybody was screaming around me. I wasn't used to it, and so I had to tell my parents, hey, you don't have to shout. But yeah, people are a lot more quiet there, and I think that a lot of Americans mistake that for people being unfriendly. But in reality, if you need help, if you're on the street, any Finnish person is happy to help you if you ask them. But yeah, it's impolite to talk loudly there, and I knew a lot of people that would say if something isn't worth saying, then don't say anything. So people don't small talk really, or put in filler speech into their conversations. They say what they feel, which also can come across sometimes as a little bit harsh and stark. But now people there really aren't trying to be rude or anything, and they're not rude, they're just saying how they feel. And it was a good thing. It made me feel more comfortable saying exactly what I wanted to say, because people didn't take as much offense to things there when it was a real feeling or a real opinion, whereas in America sometimes it's tricky where you have to navigate, is this something really okay for me to say even though it's something I'm actually feeling? But I did like that. That is a huge adjustment for some foreigners though, going there, because they might start feeling a little bit attacked. As far as crime is concerned, it's so low there. Like, I mean, there are people on drugs, you know, you see that anywhere you go, but I never ever felt like I was in danger there. It was really, really safe. However, there was this one time I was walking on a street with a colleague, and there was these 3 people sitting on a street corner in a little circle, and we were just walking past, and overhearing their conversation, one of them just said, "Hey, look at this," and pulled out this miniature crossbow out of his bag, and that was kind of surprising and kind of laughable. I didn't feel like I was in danger or anything, because you just don't feel in danger in Finland. But yeah, that happened once, and that was kind of weird but funny. And then there's, you know, the very common occurrence of a drunk person trying to get in a fight with you or whatever, but I mean, they don't really have any hand-eye coordination, so not that I ever got in a fight, but if I would have had to defend myself, it would not have been very hard. Just push him over. Other differences, obviously the language. It's extremely different from English. English is more closely related to Farsi, which is spoken in like Iran, than it is to Finnish. The Finnish language is related to Hungarian, Estonian, and then a bunch of tribal languages that are spoken in Western Russia and northern Norway, Sweden, and Finland. But yeah, they're not related to anything else. They do use a lot of borrowed words. I guess the best trick that you can have is if you don't know a word in Finnish, say the English word and add an I or an A to the end, and you might be right. I've definitely done that on many occasions, and it works. Public transportation is really good there in almost any place you go, especially in the bigger cities. In Helsinki, I mean, they have a subway, they have cable cars, they have buses, they have trains, and they're all quick and super reliable. For part of my time in Finland, actually, I lived in an apartment building that was directly above a subway station. It took me from leaving my apartment door to getting onto the train probably 2 minutes max. Super nice. And then in some other areas, I had a car. I had a car when I lived in one of the eastern parts of Finland, southeastern parts, and then also when I lived all the way up in the north. So the area that I was responsible for as part of my job was about a third of the entire country. And Finland, if I remember correctly, is about the size of the state of Montana in the United States. So like a third of the size of Montana was my work area, and we had a car there because it was like 5.5 hours across. So we needed one, and it was like in the Arctic Circle where there isn't a lot of people. Something that I had never tried before until I went there, because I was like familiar with pickled herring before, but what they had was they started jarring like other pickled foods in mustard. So they would jar like cucumber pickles and mustard, or they would do like pickled herring and mustard, or beets and mustard. And I was skeptical, but it's actually super good. Super, super good. Probably, okay, there are a couple really gross foods that I had while living in Finland. One instance where I had really gross food was when I was visiting a friend, and he was an older guy, and he had made these sandwiches for us. In Finland they have really dark rye bread, which isn't really like American rye bread. It's really chewy, it's kind of thin, and it's kind of sourdoughy. But he had like a piece of rye bread, then had these boiled eggs mashed up, and they were so overcooked. Like the yolks were like that grayish color, and then like tons of mayonnaise, and then he had these halved sardines which weren't cooked, and I'm very surprised I didn't get sick, because I was pretty sure that those were no longer safe to eat. But yeah, that was really gross. But nothing will beat the time that I was way up north in the Arctic Circle. There's a tribal nation up there called the Sami people, and they have their own language that's really close to Finnish actually, but almost all of them also speak Finnish. And a lot of them are reindeer farmers. So we were helping this guy on his reindeer farm, and he made lunch for me and my colleague, and I didn't ask him what it was. I was just eating this soup, and it was so weird. It tasted really metallic, and it had these little chunks of what I thought were reindeer meat, but they were just really squishy and just like, they were just gross. And I asked him what it was after, like politely, and he told me it was soup that he made from reindeer blood, water, salt, and rye bread chunks. So those little things that I thought were meat were pieces of bread. And he said it was a really traditional Sami food, that nation up north, and he ate it like every week growing up. And my colleague was like eating multiple bowls of this stuff because he liked it. It was so gross. So gross. There was also times when I ate blood sausage, which is actually, the name of it translates to black sausage. I thought it was good. So it didn't really taste bloody. It just tasted kind of like gritty. The texture was kind of gritty. It was good. I liked that. There's also mammi, which is an Easter food, which any American who goes to Finland at Easter hates it when they get fed it. It's made out of rye bread. I think they dry it out and grind it up and mix it with water or something, but it's really, really sticky, and it's just like, ugh, it's not good. If you mix it with cream and sugar, it's okay. So that's what I always did. When I was about to move to Finland, I think I heard at least 50 people tell me, the only people who learn Finnish are Finnish babies and sometimes the missionaries. So I felt lucky to be lumped into the group that maybe would learn Finnish, since I was going as a missionary. But Finnish is a really, really hard language. The grammar is so counterintuitive to someone who speaks English. It's very much a building block language, so words can change very much by just adding endings to them. There's not a lot of the same prepositions we use in English in Finnish. They have a bunch of different ones, and then some of them they just don't have. Like, they don't have the word about. It just is an ending that you tack on to the end of a word. They have certain forms of speech that just don't exist in English. Yeah, it's really wacky. As far as how I felt learning Finnish, it was hard, but I made the commitment to try and understand why I was saying anything I had learned from what people are saying on the street. So if someone had a phrase that they were using and I learned what that phrase meant, I wouldn't just learn it to memorize it so I could use that phrase, but I had to understand grammatically why it was formed that way. And as I did that, that drastically improved all of my speech. But yeah, sometimes people ask me like, how long did it take you to learn Finnish? And I still have to say, like, I'm kind of still learning it in a lot of ways, because there's certain things that are still really hard for me to understand. Sometimes here I'll look up the news in Finnish and try to listen to the news in Finnish, and it is super hard. Just because I don't have a ton of context what's going on, and I can't like fill in the blanks in my head. I have to be able to understand every single word when I listen to the news. It's really hard, but yeah, it's a rough language, and it takes a lot of work. One of the methods that I also used was when I had a colleague who was from Finland. I had two that were native Finns, and when we'd just be about our work, I would just say sentence after sentence, say, is this right? And they'd be, no. Is this right? No. Is this right? No. And they don't know how to explain their grammar very well because they just speak it. They don't have like a deep understanding of everything. But eventually it'd get to the point where it'd be like, oh yeah, that is right. And then I'd say, why? And they're like, I don't know. And then I'd have to pick it apart in my head. And then I'd try to come up with another sentence that was a little different. And if it was right, then I'm like, okay, that's why. And they'd be like, sure, we'll go with that. And that's what I did. But yeah, it was very much a trial and error process, that's for sure. This is sort of funny. I had my grammar book, and we called it Fred because the author of it was like Fred Carlson or something like that. But it's this purple book, and I would have like a pen, and after learning something, I would try and find it in the book, and it would be wrong, and I'd just like cross it out and write the real thing, and I felt really cool when I could be like, yeah, you're wrong, Fred. Like, this is how it's supposed to be. Or like, Fred, that sounds stupid. No one talks like that. But no, there's definitely times that I still feel like an idiot when I speak Finnish. It's hard. Obviously, because the language is hard, you'll have language mistakes that are really embarrassing. I mean, the most classic thing that people might mix up is the word for to kill and the word for to meet are really close, and so it's really easy to tell someone that you're going to kill them versus meet them. Yeah, so that's a dangerous language to speak sometimes. Other words that are really close are gate and harlot are almost the same word, so that's not good. Yeah, there's a million swear words that are close to other things, so that's dangerous. Here's a funny story. So one of my friends there was Estonian, and she had moved to Finland about 5 years earlier. She was in a bad relationship with someone in Estonia and decided she wanted to start over with her and her son. So she moved to the Helsinki area, and she was great. She was so much fun. But anyway, she once told me that there's a word in Estonian that is the name of a bird in Estonian, but in Finnish it's a really bad word, a really vulgar term, which we don't need to go into that. But anyway, she found out the hard way when she was pointing at this bird that was flying around and kept yelling this expletive, and people were like really confused. But that made me laugh. But yeah, learning the language is honestly the biggest joke. You constantly run into roadblocks, but if you learn to laugh at yourself, it makes it an adventure that is funny. So they have lots of cool like woodland animals in Finland. So obviously they have reindeer, and they have these little roe deer that are like 3 feet tall. They're super cute. Rabbits, and their rabbits there are like the size of a cat. They're huge. I saw a flying squirrel once at night, just jump between two trees. That was cool. But the funnest animal that they have in Finland are the hedgehogs. And some of my colleagues never saw them, but I was in an area where I saw multiple a day just running around. I have no idea if this is kosher in Finland or even legal, but I would want to try and catch one and try and pick it up. And I was successful 3 times in doing that. But one time I was chasing one, and as I was picking it up, I got attacked by a stinging nettle plant, which, if you don't know what that is, it's It's a plant that on the back of their leaves has little tiny hairs that are covered in a toxin. And you feel it immediately. It's like getting a bee sting all over whatever the leaf touched. So yeah, my hands were getting all like white and puffy with hives, but I was holding a hedgehog, so it was okay. It was fun. So hedgehogs are not as scary as you'd think. Underneath, they're really soft. The top, it's like a pincushion. It hurts if you try and touch the top of them. Yeah, you just scoop them out from underneath, and they're really floppy. Believe it or not, they just kind of like sag in your hands, and they're fat. And they're cute. However, one time when I was trying to get one, it was not having it, and it was like snorting and what would you say, throwing its head about. And it was kind of scary, actually. This little like hedgehog, I was kind of nervous of picking that one up, so I don't think I did. But yeah, hedgehogs are the best. Super cute. I saw only one snake on my mission. I hate snakes with all my heart. I'm so scared of them. And I thought, okay, only 2 species of snakes in Finland, like there's such a low chance I'll ever see one. Only one of those 2 is poisonous. I was at someone's cabin and sitting at the table in their front yard, like a picnic style table kind of a thing. And my friend just yells, "Karme," which means snake. And I jumped about 10 feet in the air. I actually climbed the wall up to like over onto the balcony. It wasn't that hard. There was like a lattice structure up it. But I was so scared. I saw it was probably like 4 feet long. Yeah, I was out. I didn't come off that balcony for like 15 minutes till I could see that it slithered at least 50 feet away from me. Yeah. Not a fan. Nyt mä voin antaa pienen sanoman tai viestin teillä Suomessa. Ja tällä hetkellä teidän tilanne on aika rankkaa. Venäjä on hyökännyt kimppuun Ukrainaan. Ja varmasti te pelkäätte aika paljon sitä, mitä Venäjä tekee pian. Ja haluan vain muistuttaa teitä siitä, mitä tapahtui melkein 100 vuotta sitten, kun toinen maailmansota tapahtui. Että teillä oli toivoa, että te olisi voittavia. Ja mä uskon, että hyvä aina voittaa. Ja te olette hyviä ihmisiä ja arvostan teitä todella paljon. Ja luulen, että kaikki sujuu hyvin ja mulla on toivoa siitä ja siihen. Ja kyllä se on minun viesti teille Suomessa.